Let's bring in right now Jeffrey Miron from Harvard University, arguably our great libertarian economist. Others would, I would have worn my libertarian bow tie today. I left it in the closet. Here's your book up here. Bring up this book if you would. Do we have time for that? Let's see if we can make that happen. There it is. Thank you. Libertarianism A to Z. Nice job, camera crew. And what do you try to convey in that book that Americans need to know to get away from the stereotypes of libertarianism?
Well, basically the message is that libertarianism is about sort of thoughtfully looking at the consequences of what government policies do, not just their stated intentions.
Like we're doing in Washington right now.
Not quite like we're doing in Washington right now. But taking into account that even when we have good intentions, like a program like Medicare, we have to look at all the consequences. One of the consequences of Medicare is, incredible costs that are bankrupting the economy. Another consequence is giving people no skin in the game, giving them insurance so that then they demand way too much health care, relative to any plausible benefit that they could be getting from that expenditure. And that when we do that consistently, we conclude that smaller government might well be better than large government.
Bring up chart number 2, Rexets, if you would here. Here's the reality that so many people have. You can see it down here, Jeff. It's, those Rogoff made me do those. Those are regression lines. So anyways, there's the trend, and then we get off trend. What is a libertarian prescription for our inflation-adjusted disposable income to get it back on the trend that we know in America?
Basically, in a word, it's smaller government. It's reining in the incredible growth of entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. It's getting rid of the huge amount of excessive regulation we have, from environmental to safety and so on. It's having a tax code which is simple and clear and understandable so people don't waste time complying with the tax code. And the tax code sends fair signals about what people should invest in rather than distorting those signals.
Most people I speak to, whatever their politics or their political economics, suggest we need a double-barrel approach. Peter Orszag sat in this chair the other day. We need a short-term statement of future leadership, and then we need to affect the plan out once we get the output gap closed, once we jumpstart GDP. Do you agree with that, or do you say now's the time to do it, as Ron Paul would suggest?
I guess I would say there are many, many things we can do right now. There's zillions of things that make sense without waiting for any recovery from the recession. Is it reasonable to say maybe we should forestall certain kinds of spending cuts until the recession is over, or is recovery is doing better? Perhaps, but the first order thing is there's zillions of things that need to be changed. Most of them have nothing to do with stalling recovery. We can do all of those now.
Is there anything such as a libertarian Democrat?
There are lots of Democrats. Many economists think of themselves as Democrats, but really when you look at their policy views are consistently libertarian. They find sort of the social conservatism of part of the Republican Party unappealing, and so they affiliate with Democrats, but their views are definitely libertarian.
Op-ed, Jeffrey Miron. Let's bring it up here. Philadelphia Inquirer. The debate is not about the poor. It's about whether Washington or the, I can't pronounce this word, citizenry, you got to go to Harvard to say that, controls spending. It sounds like something out of, the French Republic or whatever. Could you expand on that, please? Discuss.
Well, when we talk about making all these cuts in the size of government, the Democrats talk as though somehow we're losing all that money, that it's disappearing. But we're not. If we're not having it spent by the government, it's staying in the hands of taxpayers, and so they get the choices how to spend it. If we cut Medicare, for example, then people have to pay less in taxes to fund Medicare, and then they make decisions about how much health care to get, what kind of health care to get, or whether to spend that money on health care versus something else. So that's what's crucial. No one is talking about gutting the safety net. No one is talking about draconian reductions in Medicare or Medicaid, but some significant reductions that achieve a reasonable balance.
And Benjamin Friedman would say there's the moral consequences of growth. So I want the moral consequences of libertarianism. How many people on Capitol Hill read Jeffrey Miron?
Well, I don't know. Probably fewer than I would like.
I got fingers left over.
I think
Why is this? Why can't, whether our viewers agree or disagree with you or me or Victor or whoever, why can't we get Washington to at least engage the Miron dialogue?
Because politicians are in the business of getting elected. Now, many of them, of course, are nice people, good people. They'd like to do the right thing for the country, but they can't do anything for anybody if they're not elected. So they have to respond to the demands of their constituents. And different politicians have very different ones. People like Boehner have one set of conservative constituents. Someone like Nancy Pelosi has a different set of very liberal constituents. So when we have this gridlock, each side is doing exactly what's in their own self-interest.
Do we need an Orzag idea here of a binding commission? We've had a few before. I get people back and forth on this. Would you suggest a commission that has real teeth that will be put into place?
I think a binding commission that has teeth is probably much better than any of the other alternatives. I'm skeptical we're going to get a commission that has real teeth.
How did you get out of Teaching Act 10? How did you get out of Teaching Act 10?
I've never
did you want to? Did you teach introductory economics?
I would be delighted to teach Act 10, but Greg Mankiw has that.
That's a very cool
right
thing.
now.
Look at this chart right here. Jeffrey Miron looking at wage growth. We were going to do this with Blanche Flower, but he talked too much. The wage curve in 2011 dollars. This is the blue-collar wage out of the GDP numbers. Production earnings, we rarely look at this, set in 2011 dollars. Okay, so it's $600 a week or so now, and in today's dollars, it was over $750 when you and I were younger, when we could swim the Charles River. Okay, this is not a pretty picture. That's the angst out there, the anxiety that Krugman writes about and so many in Washington feel. How do you turn that around?
I would say, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I would say the same thing. A lot of that is due to excessive government. Some of that is actually a mirage. Some of that is because people in those groups, blue-collar workers, are getting much more compensation in the form of health benefits and therefore less in the form of wages. So when you look at total compensation, you get not a great picture, but a much less negative picture than the one that you just portrayed.
Tax preferences, Martin Feldstein and Donald Miron go to the same place. What is a tax preference and why are they so evil?
Tax preference is a feature of the tax code that gives special treatment, beneficial treatment to
mortgage deduction.
Like the mortgage interest deduction, like employer-paid health insurance premiums, special treatment to certain kinds of productive activity or certain types of consumption. They're a bad idea because they change people's incentives about what to consume or what to produce. They distort, the set of signals that markets provide via prices by making the after-tax prices something that's not neutral across different goods.
Our 18% tax revenue grosses up to about 22% with those preferences. As a libertarian, don't you want to say, no, those preferences are good and they make for a better tax regime?
No, I want to say that many of those tax preferences are really bad, even if we end up getting more revenue, because I think the consistent and thoughtful libertarian position is to be opposed to bad policies, no matter what. And this deductibility of mortgage interest and all that, those are bad policies. They cause us to misallocate our resources. Then we need to have a separate discussion about how much government should spend. And I don't think libertarians can easily get the economy to spend less, government to spend less, unless they convince people on the merits of that spending. Using these tricks, of starving the beast just doesn't seem to work. And it's not really very honest either. You,
among others, carry the mantle at Harvard University of Professor Schumpeter from a few years ago. Thomas McCraw writing his brilliant Profit of Innovation on creative destruction, on Schumpeter. He was on the edge, just the edge of Austrian economics. How do you respond when somebody says, you're a libertarian, you must be in favor of Austrian economics, sort of a policy prescription economics?
Well, there's a broad range of views that Austrians have on all sorts of issues, and they overlap with libertarian views a lot, but the Austrians have emphasized certain specific things, especially the adverse effects that can come from central banks, expanding credit, changing interest rates, adjusting the money supply. And I think there's lots of merit in those views. They have very excellent concerns. Maybe sometimes those concerns get a little hysterical.
We could go on for like a 3-hour surveillance midday, just you and me talking about this. We could also explain Red Sox playing 700 baseball since May, but that would be too complicated. Jeffrey Miron, thank you. Here's a note to leave you with on his recent thinking: redistribution, national affairs, our winter edition 2011. We need to get back to the basics and ask what a straightforward, economically rational approach. There's no one in Washington reading that article. There's no one. There's no one listening to Jeffrey Miron.